Before the day before, there'd been a lot of name calling after school and everything. Somebody threw a can or something at my friend's car and then jumped on top of his car, and they told him to get off and he wouldn't do it. And so it just started right there, and then they started firing the bus and everything. And next day it came off. Everybody just started swinging in the lunchroom, about 300 of them. All different kinds of people.
What do you think brought this about, Danny?
Well, I think it's just the feelings towards people wanting to go back to their regular schools. I think that's about it.
Final examinations were being given. Many of our students did not get to take all of their finals, so we will recycle today's program Monday. Our students, as they enter the building, will enter their first period class as normal, go through the day as a regular, normal day. And we will, of course, be especially concerned that the problems that came up today do not continue. I think I could say that the majority of our students, or if not really all of our students, want to build something at Skyline. They want to build a school where students from all areas of this city come together and learn to live and work together. I think we've made a great progress along this line, and we're going to try to start Monday morning as a new step in this campaign to show that this can be done.
Last year, the Veterans Association at UTA circulated petitions and went through a whole legislative process to get tuition for veterans eliminated. They made good progress. A bill introduced by State Senator Mike McCool passed the Senate by a nearly unanimous vote, but the legislative session ended before it could clear the House. Now, UTA Student Body President Courtney Roberts wants to see the bill brought up in the probable special session this year. He's presented a petition to Governor Preston Smith, and Smith says the matter will go on the agenda, but the governor tells me that it still may not be considered.
This legislation would amend the so-called Hazelwood Act. It would make exemptions of tuition to these all veterans, and there'll be no problem other than the fact that once the original emergency is resolved, and that emergency is an appropriations bill for 1972 fiscal year starting September the 1st, after that is over, generally the legislators, or a majority of them, they are in a hurry to get home. And in lieu of this, it's pretty difficult to get other legislation through.
So whether or not veterans have to pay tuition next year largely depends on how badly state representatives will want to go home after they consider appropriations. Roberts points out that there are 10,000 registered students and registered voters attending UTA and thousands more at other schools. He feels that pressure could be applied if it gets to the nitty-gritty. For Channel 8 News on the Move, I'm Jay Lewis in Arlington.
the Nixon administration attempted to use the United Nations for its highest purposes. We took the matter to the Security Council, and their world opinion was overwhelmingly on the side of the Nixon administration. The vote in the Security Council on ceasefire, withdrawal, political settlement in the East, humanitarian concern, was 11-2. The only people opposing us were the Soviet Union and Poland. We frustrated again on another resolution in the Security Council. The President urged that we take the matter to the General Assembly, instructed me this personally. We went to the General Assembly. There, the vote, with the United States on the long side of the vote, was 104-11. World opinion was overwhelmingly with us on the side of what we were attempting to do in trying to call ceasefire, withdrawal, political settlement, and humanitarian concern. The only people that opposed us was India, Russia, and a small handful, almost the only, a small handful of Russian satellites.
Jim, the bank prime interest rate is the lowest rate of interest charged to the most creditworthy customers of a bank that are borrowing in larger amounts for business purposes, for short-term uses, with repayment to be made within 90 days or perhaps 6 months.
So in other words, if John Doe has a perfect credit rating, makes all of his payments, lives within his income, he doesn't, in fact, qualify as one of the bank's best customers.
Well, he qualifies as one of the bank's best customers, but not in the prime rate area, as I defined it, business purposes. However, he could qualify for the best or lowest rate as a consumer. That is an entirely different type and use of credit, Jim.
Well, assuming that Mr. Jones, the consumer, has a perfect credit rating and keeps up and lives within his income, what kind of interest rate can he expect to get on, say, an automobile loan?
Well, today, the effective annual interest rate on a new automobile loan for a very creditworthy borrower would be in a range of 8 3/4 to 9%, which, as you see, is not substantially higher than that prime rate, because in the case of the prime rate, the business borrower also has to keep additional balances at the bank, which in effect raises his effective interest rate from, say, currently 5% to perhaps 6%. So the differential really isn't as wide as generally thought.
Well, then exactly who are these most creditworthy customers? Are they companies like AT&T, Humble, people of that sort?
Yes, they're in the list, let's say, of the Fortune 500. The biggest 500 firms in the country are in the region, and we have a substantial number in the Dallas-Fort Worth region that do rank in that Fortune 500. So let's say out of 10 million business firms in the country, very few really qualify for that prime rate.
When we talk about a car loan of 8 3/4 or 9%, a lot of people say, that high? And yet that seems to be a little lower than it's been recently.
Well, it is substantially lower than it was as recently as 2 years ago, Jim, and I would like to remind you and the viewers that there's a substantial amount of more paperwork that goes with the ordinary automobile loan, with monthly payments to be received and receipted for, so that over a period of 24 months or 36 months, there will be 24, 36 times 2 or 3 pieces of paper. A substantial amount of clerical work. So their true base cost of interest really isn't that full 9%.
Then would you say a bank actually makes more money on the prime rate of 5% than on the consumer's rate of 8 3/4?
The record shows that that is so, yes.
Another bite? Bite? Good bite. Come on, good bite. That's it, that good boy. Good boy.
Erling Downing
Goodbye.
is the mother of 2-year-old John Downing
You
Jr.
got goodbye that time.
Many things must go through Mrs. Downing's mind during these times when she's feeding him.
Goodbye.
She may have to spoon feed him for the rest of his life.
Come on. Goodbye.
John Jr. has been in a
Good
coma
boy.
for 3 weeks today.
This mommy's good boy. Yeah.
John has been struggling for his life since he was born with brain damage. Diagnosed as an epileptic last year with controllable seizures, he took a turn for the worse this past December. John went into some mysterious convulsions and was rushed to Methodist Hospital. Because of this most recent attack, young John Jr. is left a cerebral-plegic epileptic.
Yeah.
The baby of the family, John has 2 sisters and 1 brother living at home.
Goodbye.
All the children constantly ask Mrs. Downing, when will little John be like he used to be and play with us?
Goodbye.
Doctors have told Mrs. Downing they have done all they can for young John. They say it's out of their hands now. Unless he comes out of this coma, they can't treat him further. Mrs. Downing, where are you going to go from here?
Prayers. Prayers and God is the only one that's going to help him now.
Are you asking your friends, ministers, other people to pray for him?
Yes, and I would like the world to pray for me if they would.
Have you seen any signs yet of change, that he's getting better?
Yes, he can lay on his stomach now and raise his head up, where before it was like flat down, where he was no movements except the cerebral palsy.
There's probably no love like a mother's love for her son, her child. Now she's calling on both heaven and earth to help her and her young son pull through. This is Donna Witkowski for Channel 8 News, On the Move.
Vern, I think, we talked a little bit today. I talked to Bob Lilly earlier this morning, and I think the theme of this ball club is that no one has even considered the fact that we were going after a lot of money. Money never entered into it. It was the idea that we're just so tired of not being able to be on top, and we finally went for the top and got there. And I think this is what everybody's savoring, the idea that we are the champs. Dave?
I'd like to say that the way I felt, I was before the game, I was wondering, what kind of reaction I'd have, after we won, because I knew personally that I could not accept anything else, except victory, because I've been here for this is my 10th year, and there's Mike's 15th year. But there's a lot of guys on the team that's been around for a long time, and we've been to the almost there. We've been in a lot of big games and won a lot of big games and blew some. But this was it for us, and I just couldn't realize how I could feel if we lost. And it's just I don't know, it's a weird feeling after it's over with. And I'm just glad we finally did it, and maybe we can do it again next year. But we can always say we did it, right?
You buried one dog for sure. I hope with the national press. This old junk about you can't win the big one.
I think we proved that up. Every game this year was a big one for us. After we lost the 3 games early in the season, we go back and look at a lot of games. I look at that St. Louis game. We beat them 16-13. Probably was the biggest game we played. Then a Washington game, and then right down the line, it was a struggle all the way. L.A. and San Francisco, of course, Minnesota. But we won a lot of big games, Vern. I think that thing is buried for good now.
Well, the only thing that I've learned from the whole deal is like not to trust anybody white, because like people that I thought were my friends, because like I'm a second-year student at Skyline, like I was here last year, and there wasn't but 20 blacks here last year, and like we got along okay, but like I'm a second-year student now, and I see like people that I thought were my friends like turning against me, and that's bad.
Do you really think the students here want to get along with each other?
Well, I can only say I hope so. If they don't, we're in for a lot of problems. Unfortunately, I think the students who wouldn't want to get along are those who were forced to come here due to the desegregation and whatnot. And the students who don't want to come, if we can reach them, if we can get them to want to become a part of the school, and that's our problem right there.
As best I can get from this point, it started because, I'm told, by certain of our black students, that a group of students, fine, by a group of our black students claimed that someone threw rocks at their bus yesterday. And of course, once something like this thing starts, no one knows what caused it from that point forward.
As the student body president, what is your reaction to what has happened here today?
I'm really shocked, to tell you the truth. I can't say much else about it.
Were you surprised that this happened?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. So many bad things have been happening to blacks, and blacks have been blamed for so many other things. Like, I'm not really surprised at all.
No. Now this again, I must speak for myself. It seems to me that a man of the cloth is no different than the convinced Christian without the cloth, or the convinced Jew without the cloth. We are called to be faithful disciples together. Under God, it seems to me, we must go as far as we feel led to go in seeking to identify with and befriend the cause of those who are oppressed and brutalized wherever, on our own doorstep, on the other side of the world. As I read the New Testament, however, this cannot, for me, lead to violence. I'm committed completely to a nonviolent way.
Well, Jerry, we're right at full strength right now. The only exception is Milt Black, who has a broken arm and will be lost to us just for most of the season. We hope that he'll be back in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season.
Won't you be seeking revenge of sorts after having been blanked for the first time in goodness knows when against Oklahoma City tonight?
Well, yes, in one sense, Jerry. I just feel that we just played badly, and I know that we can play a 200% better game than when we played there. And we have them games over a course of a season, and it's not really revenge. I think that if we play to our potential, that we'll come out a winner tonight.
And what about Fort Worth? Did they have a good game against the Hawks here last weekend?
Well, let's put it this way. We started off very, very strongly, more like our team earlier in the season. They were very aggressive and forcing Fort Worth and making a lot of mistakes. We capitalized, got an early lead, and we played an exceptional first period, and that's where the game was really won. And as I think as somebody put it, the fans just settled back to enjoy the rest of the game. Fort Worth are a much improved club. I have a lot of respect for them. It's going to be quite a game. I know they're over there tomorrow night. I don't think we've ever won in the convention center in our 3 games. We've tied one our last outing there, and they're going to gain a lot of respect before the year's over. They've acquired about 6, 7, or 8 new players, and they're seasoned players, which got to help them. So I'm looking for Fort Worth to come along strong, and I just hope that we play our games one at a time, and if we do our share of winning, we don't have to worry about anybody in the league.
Ken.